I'm George Razio with the National Apartment Association. Welcome to this month's Research Roundup, where we sort the signal from the data noise and highlight the economic and housing trends that matter most for the rental housing industry. Starting with the broader economy, July's data showed that U.S. gross domestic product grew at a modest 1.5% annualized rate in the second quarter. The headline number reflected weaker government spending and higher imports, but stronger consumer spending, business investment, and exports suggest the private sector remains more resilient than the top-line GDP figure implies. The latest employment report, however, points to a stalling labor market. In the wake of several months of slowing momentum, the labor market lost 23,000 jobs in July, surprising many economists. The unemployment rate declined to 4.1%, even as fewer Americans participated in the labor force. Hourly wage growth remained positive, but average earnings are no longer keeping pace with inflation as consumers lose purchasing power. Speaking of inflation, June's data showed some moderation in price growth. After reaching 4.2% in May, the consumer price index slowed to 3.5% in June. Economists may welcome that move, but for most households, slower inflation still means prices are rising. Even with higher prices, consumers continued spending at retail stores through June, although growth cooled from May's stronger pace. The takeaway is that consumers are becoming more selective and value conscious. With wages moving sideways in real terms, consumers are also leaning more heavily on borrowing to support spending. Based on the latest Equifax data, consumer credit outstanding continues to increase. Growth remains concentrated in auto loans and student debt, with credit card balances also rising. Why does this matter? Slowing job growth, wage gains that don't keep up with inflation, and elevated interest rates all point to household finances becoming increasingly stretched. These pressures are also weighing on policymakers at the Federal Reserve. At its July meeting, the Federal Open Market Committee voted to keep the federal funds rate unchanged. The meeting was notable, however, because 3 committee members voted to raise rates, hinting at concerns about the path of inflation. So, how are these macro trends showing up in the housing market? Let's start with interest rates. In the final week of July, the Freddie Mac 30-year fixed mortgage rate reached its highest level of 2026, a sign that bond markets remain concerned about inflation and the Fed's cautious policy stance. High mortgage rates and elevated home prices continue to keep many would-be buyers on the sidelines during what is typically the peak buying season. Existing home sales declined in June as affordability challenges weighed on buyers across much of the country. At the same time, new home sales picked up in June. What explains the difference? Prices. The median price of a new home was $398,000 in June, compared with $441,000 for an existing home. Builders are taking a more pragmatic approach to inventory, using price reductions and buyer incentives to attract cost-conscious households. New construction data also showed that multifamily starts and completions remain an important bright spot in addressing ongoing housing supply shortages. While the pace of deliveries has slowed from the surge of the past several years, builders continue to see opportunity in meeting demand at more attainable price points. For rental housing, the picture is increasingly local. National rent growth remains relatively flat, but performance varies widely by market. Coastal and Midwestern markets posted solid growth in rent, while several Sunbelt markets continue to see rent declines as elevated new supply increases competition for renters. We track these economic and market indicators every month, and you can find the full details in our latest research, like the newest apartment market pulse and multifamily labor dynamics report. Visit NAA Research website for more insights and follow NAA on social for the latest updates.